Hello and welcome to Lab 2 for the Geographer's Craft at the University of Texas, Department of Geography and the Environment, GRG 460C. Today's lab is Populated Place Centroids. Now, the objective of this exercise is to familiarize the student with internet resources, relational database techniques, and importation of data sets into a GIS platform. Beginning, we will join two versions of populated place lists into Microsoft Access, which is a relational database system, and compare points from locations at the US Census Bureau and US Geological Survey. Now, to get started, we're going to go ahead and locate and download those data sets. As you see here, we already have the links to the data sets that we're going to need. So I'm going to start by copying the census places, and I'm going to copy that once it's highlighted. And I'm going to paste that in my web browser right up here. I already have it open, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. Right click, make sure it's all highlighted, right click and paste. Okay, now it's going to ask you for there's a lot of different information here, but we're going to want to save places. So if you right click that and you save your target as, you save it as places 2K. Now, I would recommend saving it in your H drive, which is the drive that has your initials followed by 4 integers after it. And that's a web-based or cloud-based storage system, so you can access your information from different computers on campus. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into the Geographer's Craft folder I've created, and created a folder for Lab 2. I already have that saved, so I'm going to replace it to be sure I have the most recent data. And now I'm going to go and get my other data set, copy, and paste that into my web browser. Now, I'm going to open up another tab here so that I can paste it, and so I can go back to the metadata of the other census information. So now that you're at the USGS, you want to search for the state of Texas is what we're going to be working with today. So if you click on Texas in your state section, and the feature class we're looking at is populated places. Now you see there's a lot of options: trail, tunnel, valley, well, swamp, summit. Well, essentially this is a relational database too, so it's making a query for different information, and it's essentially what we're doing in Microsoft Access. It will make a lot more sense as we go through the lab. So I'm going to send that query. Now I'm going to be sure that that is saved. When it pops up, it's going to look like this from the USGS. Now this is just a preview, and so to make that work, you want to click on your Save as Pipe Delimited file, right click, Save Target As, and it's going to work on opening that. And once you have that option to save as, I go back to my H drive. I'm going to find my Geographer's Craft folder for Lab 2, and I'm going to save this as tx_deci. Now it says save type as Microsoft Office, separated values file. So that's CSV, which means each feature, each different record is separated by a comma or a pipe. In this case, it tells you it's a pipe delimited file. So it's an easy way to store a vast amount of information as a text document rather than as an Excel style spreadsheet, which takes up a lot more space. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now I'm going to open up Microsoft Access. And you can search for your programs. It's the easiest way to do it. I'm working with Microsoft Access 2007. Start by opening a blank database. I'm going to save this as Lab 2 for simplicity. And it already exists, but I'm going to replace it because I'm working with a new one. Or I'm going to call it Database 3 because it didn't want to let me save that. Now, anytime you open up a new database, it's going to give you a brand new table, and you don't necessarily need that. So I'm going to close out of that new table and add the data that I have downloaded from the internet. So if you go to external data, you can do it from an Excel spreadsheet or an Access spreadsheet, or you can use a text file, which is actually what we'll be using today. So I'm going to browse to my folder, Geographer's Craft, Lab 2, and I'm looking for places 2K. Okay. And the first option you get is whether you want to make this a delimited file or a fixed width. Now delimited, again, that's a CSV, comma separated values, or delimited with a pipe, a tab, or a space. As you can see, it's already kind of set this in the preview into columns for you. So we're going to go and leave that fixed width. Fields are aligned in columns and the spaces between each field. Now it gives you the option to add new line breaks. Well, it looks like up at the beginning here, there's a lot of information that I don't really know what it means. So to find out what that information means, I'm going to go back to my web browser, and I'm going to go back to my Census Bureau, so working with the places file, and look at the record layout. The record layout is your metadata for all of the files that you have. So you can see it's separated into columns. So each column is a unique space, whether it's a letter, a number, or punctuation. And so the first two columns, 1 and 2, are the U.S. Postal Service state abbreviation, followed by the state FIPS code, which is also another 2 places, and the place FIPS code. So the state FIPS code is a unique number for each state, and the place is a unique number for each city. If you go back to Microsoft Access, it'll make a little more sense. The first 2 columns is the state, so we're going to separate it there. If you just left click, you can make a new line. Be sure it's for the first 2 columns. You can drag it over if you need to. And then the third and fourth columns are the state FIPS. So we're going to click that and make another one. And it looks like we need one more in between the name of the city and the place FIPS. So we're going to click once more. We're just going to go and scroll through to be sure that we have all of those separated. It looks good, so I think we're done. At this point, you can add your field names. So if you click on the field, and this is a state, let's say state FIPS, and be sure that's a long integer. When you're working with numbers, you're going to want the integers generally, unless it's a decimal, then you want double. And then the name. Now the most important part today, you see that's a text file, is that we're going to be working with latitude and longitude. So let's scroll to the very end, and I know from my metadata that the last 2 sections are latitude and longitude, and they're in decimal degrees. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to change this field to latitude, and that's a double integer because there's a decimal in there. I'm going to save the second one as longitude. Next. Now the primary key is just a unique number for each record, and that's just for internal housekeeping. I'm going to let Access add that primary key, and now I'm done. Now if you're going to batch that data, you can save your import steps, so you don't have to repeat all those steps for each new file that you use. But I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to open up that places 2K table. Now that I have the fixed width table in place, I'm going to go ahead and add my separated, my delimited, pipe delimited file. So go external data, add file, back to my H drive, and we're looking at text deci. We saved it as that earlier. So now you see this is where the delimited makes sense. These are not separated out into columns individually. They're separated by this figure here that we call a pipe. Now to find the pipe, that's going to be shift and backslash. It's right above your enter key on the right hand side. So let's change that to delimited. Go next. Now it's going to ask you what you want that delimiter to be. So what separates different values in your record? In this case, it's going to be other. It's often comma. That's probably the most important. So now we're going to go shift backslash, and we have our pipe in there. As you can see, it turned all those pipes into a new field. Now be sure that you make the text qualifier as the quotations, so that now all that is text, and the first row does contain the field names, so feature name, ID, class, county, etc. And that looks like it's a pretty complete file. Let's scroll through to be sure it all looks good. Alright, so we're going to close next. Now once again we can name our feature names. So, they're already labeled, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that section and let Access add the primary key, and we're going to go ahead and finish that. Now, once again, if I was batching this, I would want to save those import steps and close that. Now let's take a look at that file. Now we have all these different places, and we're going to match this up. We're going to take these two separate tables and we're going to make one table. So now that you know how to add data into Microsoft Access, we're going to go ahead and go to part 2 of this lab, and you can follow that on the link, which will be provided on the blog.